you're at the stage in your career where I imagine you get approached by a lot of young people that are looking for advice, career advice on what they should do. And there's a really big debate that's going on, especially in the US right now, is rethinking higher education. So imagine from time to time that there's maybe it's nieces and nephews or cousins or teenage sons and daughters of neighbors or former coworkers that approach you looking for advice. They may not be technical. They may not be thinking that engineering or software development is for them, but it's hard to miss the massive amount of attention that generative AI and digital infrastructure has been getting over the last year or two. So they're curious about these careers and like client-facing roles. What would you tell to someone that's like late teens, early 20s that's trying to figure out if this is a place for them?
That's funny. I was at family weekend with two of my kids in college this past weekend, and I had a lot of these questions come up. So look, listen. There's certainly the threat of AI replacing certain jobs, certain functions. That's inevitable. I do think that AI will replace people that don't know how to use AI to their benefit, so they can add value on top of it. But look, this is topical. I would encourage a lot of people to get into something that's going to be indispensable on a go-forward basis when it comes to AI, which is data centers. That is the basic element by which AI functions and is able to deliver its value. Data centers is the foundation. So this is a market right now that is thirsty for talent. And in my humble opinion, it doesn't always require a degree to get into it. If being in engineering is not your calling, or being in development is not your calling, the trades offer a great way to make a very comfortable living, to get into that space. There's a need for electricians, for builders, for plumbers, so on and so forth, that would come in and help build these data centers. And there's an insatiable appetite right now for data center space in the world that is really fueled in part by this AI demand. Although AI demand is still a small part, but that's what's attracting a lot of attention, and it's forecasted to grow. As a matter of fact, a data center space is availability is an all-time low. And JLL just published a report a couple of weeks ago that is trending basically to zero availability. And then, so this is why we need more fresh talent to get into this business, everywhere from folks in the trades to people in engineering to also people in go-to-market, right, that understand how to explain the value prop of data centers. Data centers aren't just these big boxy buildings that suck a lot of power. No, data centers is where medical imaging gets done. Data centers, we got to bring that value prop to the market so that we're not painted in the brush of these are the guys that are sucking all the energy and polluting and building these ugly buildings. On the contrary, if it wasn't for data centers, we wouldn't have navigation. We wouldn't have GPS navigation. We wouldn't have self-driving cars. We wouldn't have medical imaging, so on and so forth. So we got to bring the value prop of what data centers bring to society and the rapid advancements that data centers have brought to society.
Yeah, it's interesting. And even this conversation that we're having and YouTube and podcasting, like none of this would exist without having that kind of infrastructure to do this. It was a really novel concept 25 years ago when Mark Cuban made history for broadcasting a fashion show on the internet back at a time when people could barely figure out how to add a photo to a file attachment because there was no camera phones yet.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, it's wild.